Hello, and thank you, everyone, to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week, Michael and I are going to be talking about the DCU, and specifically what Superman, the 2025 film, needs to actually do to really ignite the DCU. How does this DCU be a success? In any universe, it has to be a success right out the gate. You can't have a successful cinematic universe if the first project fails. So we're going to talk about what this film needs to do to be a success and our hopes for the DCU going forward. So Comic-Con came and went. Deadpool came out, is breaking all the records and a half. I love that the joke from Deadpool 2, where he said Deadpool's bigger than Jesus, is now official. It officially domestically beat The Passion of the Christ in theaters.
Hot dog. I didn't know that. Yep. To be fair, though, Passion of the Christ 2 is coming, so who knows what numbers that one will do.
You mean Passion of the Christ 2, Electric Boogaloo? No, that's honestly, I don't see how they would even make a sequel.
He said he's working on it. Gibson said he has a script. He said he's ready to shoot.
What's he going to shoot? Like the next day where he shows up and says, "I'm alive, guys," and then does his proselyting and then leaves again. What kind of movie is that? Like,
I don't know what it's supposed to be. I just know
Mel Gibson needs to be stopped.
Listen, Mel Gibson's a bad man. He played Mad Max for a reason. It's so interesting that you're posing this question like this, because when I look around the cinematic landscape, there's very few heroes that can be successful just on their own. And without going into any spoilers, when I think about what made Spider-Man No Way Home and Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine successful, there is kind of a referential nature to these movies. And this movie then has to be its own thing. Yep. So I feel like they're introducing a lot. I feel like it can be its own thing. I think it's going to be the starter dough for everything else. With where it's at now, does it have to do $1 billion to be successful, Taylor?
No. And I think that's what a lot of people are misunderstanding, is because, I mean, what did Iron Man 2008 make?
It's such a good example. It should really just copy whatever that movie did.
Yeah. So the movie itself, it made only $500+ million. It made 318 million domestic, 226 million international, and it made worldwide 585 million. That is not a lot compared to today's standards. But if you also compare how much Iron Man's budget was, I think that's always the big one. So the budget for the first Iron Man was actually $140 million. So what is Superman's budget? The new movie has a whopping $200 million budget.
But that's actually probably in 2024 numbers. That's probably not that far off from 140 with inflation. I mean, that's still kind of it's not a cheap film by any stretch of the imagination, but that's a pretty good budget for what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, so there was a big rumor a while back that the budget for Superman had ballooned up $364 million. James Gunn said flat out, absolutely not. How in the world do you think they know what our budget is? And then the real numbers kind of tapered down to being at maximum 225, meaning this film needs to make about 500 million to break even.
James Gunn is a successful director. He would not be a successful director if he was ballooning budgets 125% or whatever, 50% more of what it was supposed to be.
Exactly.
So I feel that he knows how to shoot a movie and get it under budget. Does the promise of the rest of the universe, is that enough to get in? Because if we're just talking about casual fans, then it just needs to be a fun movie.
Yeah.
Like, it just needs to be a fun adventure. I mean, there's a lot of people, I feel like I've been asking people around the office, have you seen Deadpool Wolverine? I am surprised the number of people. A girl told me today, she was like, I loved it in the movie theater. She goes, I've seen none of the Deadpool movies. I said, you didn't even know what was going on? She said, that's okay. I'll know enough. I think that the movie needs to just let the audience know enough. Let the nerds who are in the know about it. Let everybody else just go for the roller coaster ride.
So the other day, I posted a story on Instagram where I basically I pointed out this tweet this guy put out, and in the tweet he had mentioned that fans today are just kind of ridiculous, and it was actually a pretty cool thing. And I actually took what he said and then added to it. He said, "Comic book fans, you are not studio executives. You aren't a casting director. You're not a screenwriter, nor are you a director. When these movies aren't your exact prescription of a fan service, that's not your cue to review bomb. Just learn how to be a fan." And then I segued saying, exactly that. The truth of the world is that these movies are made for general audiences, not just the ride or die comic book fans. Just because it doesn't check all of your boxes 100% accurate to the comic source material or follow every single fan casting that you want doesn't mean it's a bad product. Be happy that something that you love is actually being presented for the whole world this way and is going to open the door for a future fan to fall in love with this character as you have. I've seen so many fans throw their hate and treat their opinions like facts and constantly shit on something that someone else could be excited for. Just be a grateful fan, show the world that you're not petty, toxic, or childish, and show the world why you love these things. Passion is a much better indicator of a good property than the toxicity that some fans tend to follow with. So that was my 2 cents that I posted. I got a lot of good responses from people about that. They're like, exactly. And I'm like, cool. So let's do it.
Right. That's the point. We then have to do it. And meaning that this version of Superman will just be this version of Superman. And there'll be offshoots from it, but that the comic books are still going to be there. I do feel that this is probably going to be more comic accurate than many of the other Supermans because we already know where James Gunn is pulling from.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a big indicator that James is making this to be Superman Legacy. This is meant to be a project that encapsulates all of the different versions of Superman kind of amalgamated into one. We know that he's taking a lot from the modern day comics. He's taking a lot from the Superman for All Seasons, Superman Man of Tomorrow. We know that he's taking a lot from the 80s Man of Steel comics. So we understand that he is pulling from a lot of the best Superman stories, as well as referencing what had been done before in previous movies. We have Otis, we have Tessmacher, we have all these characters that were originated from Superman 78. So we know that this film is meant to be this bridging film that kind of treats Superman as he is the every Superman.
I feel like the 78 movie is is not present in people's minds. I know that we have seen it and we grew up on it because when we were little kids, there were no superhero movies. Superman was one of the few what I mean? There's 5 of them, and that was one of the ones you would watch all the time.
Yeah.
Do you think that a general audience even knows about Superman 78? They probably know Zack Snyder's Superman more.
I do. I think what comes down to is that general audiences have to react to this film. This has to be a good film that shows Superman as not some moody, brooding, emotional character, but as all of those things, but still choosing to be good on top of it. The problem that they had with the Zack Snyderverse, and I'll say this full explain that I loved Zack Snyder's take on the whole DC universe, but the problem that his universe had was that it was a deconstruction that was meant to lead into the iconic comic book versions. By the time this universe was canceled, we never got to see that version of Superman. So what James Gunn needs to do differently is he's already established that this Superman movie is taking place as a year 2, year 3 Superman. He's been Superman for a little while. So he's going to have his duality issues. He's going to have issues with dealing with the fact that he's human and Kryptonian, but he's still going to go out and choose to be a beacon of hope. He's not going to be questioning, why am I Superman? He's not going to be looking at the world saying, wow, the world hates me. Should I even do this? He's not Spider-Man. This is Superman. This is the character that is always meant to be I need to show the world that I can be an example for them, even if I don't believe in myself sometimes.
Our next point. I think this movie needs to show and not tell. I think we need to see Superman do everything. And I don't know if that means vignettes or different, or the first part of the movie feels a little bit snappier than the other part. I think that we need to see him do a lot of stuff. I feel like when I think about the things Zack Snyder Superman did, he did a lot of fighting of alien beings and Justice League stuff. I think we need, much like the new Deadpool Wolverine had Wolverine doing classic poses, I think we need to see Superman holding the upside down car. I think we need to see Superman saving the little girl. We need to see somebody unload a machine gun into his chest, and they fly off the whole way, and he goes, "Come on, fellas, what are we doing here?" You know what I mean?
I agree. I think they need to do all of that, but they also need to do it in a way that doesn't feel hokey, right? I mean, that was actually something that they did in Superman Returns, and it didn't really stick for a lot of people because it felt like the bookends of that movie was kind of a slugfest of a story. And then you had the montage, the plane scene, and you had these really great middle parts, but the story of Superman losing his way at the beginning, the story of Lex Luthor trying to make a new Krypton near the end, it just didn't fit with what people were wanting from a whole story. So I think, yes.
I've disliked that movie since day one. It was not my favorite of the Bryan Singer movies. I should probably watch it again. I don't feel like I've watched it in 15 years. I feel like
you probably saw it the one time we saw it back in 2005, and then you never touched it again.
You're probably right. I do remember you probably had it on DVD and it was playing in the background because I know that we had it at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
But it didn't. I mean, I don't know. That movie does not stick with me. So maybe I need to rewatch that to think about those things.
I think the other thing about that movie that kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way is that it came out during the heyday of Smallville. So a lot of people were like, why didn't they just make a Smallville movie? Why are we bringing back Christopher Reeve Superman? So a lot of people were like already kind of put off by the idea that we were having this whole other movie that existed in a canon that people hadn't talked about in like 25 years. But maybe that's just my understanding of it. But I know that we had friends that were watching the movie with us like, why isn't this just Smallville? Why are we doing this?
I'm not worried about it being hokey because I don't feel like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are hokey. And I feel like maybe if we're talking about what this movie needs to do to be successful, it needs to not feel like Guardians.
Yes.
Now, I don't think it will, but he knows how to shoot group comedy scenes. I'm thinking about the many of the scenes in Peacemaker where they're sitting around, shooting the shit and stuff like that. Very funny scenes, and I can absolutely see those scenes happening in the newsroom or the conference room where we get that sort of same vibe. But to the other part, I feel like we need the other heroes in the movie to feel impactful, but also secondary.
Yes. I don't think for a second that you need to have the movie feel like to me, it's like, I guess 2 weeks now is enough time to talk about spoilers. I want the heroes like Hawkman, Mr. Terrific, and Green Lantern to feel very much like the Deadpool secondary characters like Gambit, Elektra, Blade. Like I want them to feel like, oh, when they're there, but they're not the focus of the story. And when you leave them, you're not going to be like, oh, damn, I need them back. I want them to be very much what they were, supporting roles, extended cameos, if you will, but they don't need to be front and center. This needs to be everything.
I also think it's okay if we don't necessarily jam in all the other worlds. I'm sure there will be on the newspaper, it'll say crime wave in Gotham hits a new high. To me, that all feels within world, but I don't necessarily feel like we need to ham fist these things in there. I think it just needs to be Superman.
Exactly. I think it needs to be a movie that's focused on Superman. Yes, the bigger world is important. You can talk about it. You can show it even if you want, but you don't need to go nuts. Like, I think if you do like they did in Batman and Superman Man of Tomorrow, the animated movie, where you have just like a newspaper cover with a shadowy figure that looks like Batman, like in the background, like, yeah, that's all you really need. But you don't need to be like, oh, by the way, here's a cameo, here's a cameo, here's a cameo, here's a cameo. Like, that's what Warner Brothers did with Batman vs Superman, and then they did that weird Wonder Woman dossier sequence where she's like looking at a laptop full of all the heroes. Like, we don't need that. We just need those heroes.
Opening up QuickTime files for little trailers on everybody.
Yeah, that are just like dun, 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 dun. You're like, oh man, I'm excited for that movie, and then we never got that movie for like.
We never got those movies. So as I look behind you, and I'm looking at your mountain of toys.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the toy side of all of this. Is there a Superman toy that like you would like to see? Like, there's no Hulk hands. We're not going to get Superman hands. They absolutely are going to sell capes, but they've been selling capes since the 40s.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have like the cape. They're going to have like Superman chest with the light up emblem, and that's about it. Like, I don't see them going through, or maybe like what they did where they have Superman like gauntlets that have like a bendy piece of steel. Something like that. They did that with Superman Returns. I remember kids loved that back then. But they don't need to go nuts with it. I think if you want to appease the adult collector, which is the primary purchaser of toys now, because most kids don't put down the goddamn tablet. If you want to appease the primary collector, McFarlane needs to come out in spades with some really good toys.
Movie accurate Superman villain, the newsroom, just actor accurate.
Yes, and it needs to be done where people are like, damn, I need to have that on my shelf. And just like they did, because McFarlane is really good at these things, where you have like the adult collector figures, which is what I have a wall of over here with all the Batman movie ones, the Justice League movie ones. Like, I have all of those from McFarlane. You have those figures, but then you also have to like the statues. I mean, McFarlane makes these really good premium statues. I think I have one over here of the Batman behind the Pokeball and behind Boba Fett. It's a nice 12-inch statue. It looks gorgeous. I probably want to repaint it one of these days because it's a glossy finish, and Batman needs like a matte finish, and he needs the gold on his belt and boots and all that stuff that was missing. But it's a solid statue, and it was like $20. So I think as long as McFarlane comes out with some good products, people will show up. And then T-shirts and all the other stuff, the clothing, that kind of merchandise, that's going to sell. But again, it has to be appealing to general audiences. And the way you make it appealing to general audiences is you don't do something that parents are going to freak out about.
Yes, I hear that. I don't feel like I have seen anything that has made me think that, but who knows when we would actually see that.
Because in Man of Steel, I remember a lot of people, opening weekend was very big for Man of Steel, but it did have a pretty significant drop-off. And the reason why was that everyone who wanted to see it, saw it. And then word of mouth came out that at the end of the movie, Superman kills a guy. And a lot of parents were like, nope, I'm not taking my kid to watch Superman break somebody's neck. Because, yes, it was done in the comics. It was done in Superman 2. It was done in every iteration of Superman prior. But the way they presented the killing in the movie put people off. And I think as long as you don't do that, people will be okay.
Do you think that we need the John Williams score in this movie?
I think you have to have a vibe that's like John Williams, because John Williams' score was uplifting. It was iconic. And the Superman score we got from Hans Zimmer was kind of felt Batman-ish, but it didn't feel like the John Williams score at all. And I give it its credit. It's not supposed to. So I just felt like a lot of people were expecting the more uplifting, like they were expecting that uplifting, like as it goes, like the Superman score never had that. It went like it stayed in this very low octave. So as long as the movie uplifts people, the score doesn't need to be John Williams. It just has to give you the vibe that you're like, oh, I'm flying through the clouds with Superman. Like, it's got to feel like this is the guy saving you. Not this is a guy who's a little sad right now.
Sure. I I don't have any. I mean, I'm excited to see more of the movie, and I think that there's more behind the curtains that I know hasn't been seen. Um,
Yes. They filmed most of the film on a soundstage, and what we got for the outdoor stuff was just the outdoor stuff they needed in public. So
Right.
everything, the majority of the spoilers haven't even been revealed yet, which is
When do you
huge.
when do you think we see theatrical trailer for this or TV trailer for this? End of year?
I think end of year is fair. I mean, the movie just wrapped, so I feel like the first trailer we're probably going to get is a nice Christmassy gift. Like, I don't know what's coming out near the end of this year, but I think Warner Brothers has to have one or two big things near the end of the year, and that's probably what they're going to attach it to. I could also see it appearing like every week on every episode of Peacemaker and Creature Commandos. It's like, because HBO is pretty notorious for like, let's throw a trailer at the beginning of every one of our episodes.
Yeah.
I was watching. I mean, I finally sat down and watched the finale for Game of Thrones. Not Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon yesterday.
I'm behind. I'm
Yeah,
behind. This whole season, I've been behind.
It's been a good season. The ending does kind of have this like Sopranos moment where it just ends, and you're like, oh,
Sure.
but it's not bad. It's like this is a solid season, and they made the reveal that this show is going to officially end at season 4.
Great.
So they're wrapping up the story in 4 seasons, which is fantastic.
I think
but-
people like. I think people like knowing that.
Yeah. Especially how they ended the season when you're like, oh, is this going to work? No, it's not going to work. Things are going to get messy. And you know it's going to get messy. So I think that's why people are going to be excited about it. But, you know, it's one of those, like, I want them to stick the landing, and I think they will. But distraction aside, I think at the beginning of every episode, they'll probably do that. They'll throw a trailer in for Superman or something like that, just to get the hype engine going. And when people talk about like marketing fees, people always tend to forget that marketing budget doesn't account for throwing a trailer in front of our own TV show on our own channel, because it doesn't, because they can just do that. It doesn't count for throwing a trailer on YouTube. It doesn't count for throwing random internet posts. None of that. That's not the budget. The budget is for like, we're going to go sponsor the NBA and put it on prime time, or we're going to do a TV spot in the Super Bowl. That's where the budgets come from.
So what? Let's talk about that for a second. What would you want to see as the advertising? We're obviously going to see the S, but do you want to see Superman flying? Do you want it to be the cape? Do you want it to be tableaus from the movie, or do you just want it to be the essence of Superman? Because I feel like we've seen one of each at this point, and I don't know what the best of them is.
I think what they need to do is whatever we saw before with Superman, because I mean, Batman Superman, what was Batman Superman's marketing? It was mostly Batman.
Yes.
Because they knew people loved Batman, responded to Batman. I mean, one of the final trailer for Batman Superman was Batman's warehouse scene, which is still one of the best Batman scenes to ever exist on film. But it was that scene. That was like the trailer was that scene. So
in a CG heavy world, do you think we get a scene like that in Superman?
I think there's going to be some scenes like that, but it's going to be more akin to what we got with Man of Steel, where you're going to have like
they almost need to do like a Buster Keaton, like a house falls on the guy. Like they almost need something that big.
I think what they need to do for like this opening trailer, give the S, show Superman. Like, you don't need to do what they did with Man of Steel. The trailer marketing for Man of Steel was, let's not show you Superman. Let's do a voiceover with Pa Kent or Jor-El talking about Superman, and you show him on the farm, show him as a kid, and then the final shot, you see Superman flying in the sky and doing the big explosion of sonic boom. No one really saw Superman until like the second or third trailer, and you're like, oh wow, that's the costume? Okay. But the marketing was very much not showing you that stuff. So I think what they need to do for this initial trailer is show the cape, show the yellow S, show the chest, show Superman stopping a train or something. Like, show him being Superman. Don't show anything about the plot. Just show some of the B-roll Superman footage. And just kind of do the theme, do that, do like people looking in wonder kind of a thing, and just give like the Superman hope kind of a vibe. And just do that as your initial trailer. And then second trailer, third trailer, go nuts on the story shit.
Yeah, I think you show Superman. I think you show a lot of him, and then you build up to all that other stuff. Okay. Marketing, soundtrack, toys. Is there anything we haven't hit on? Is there anything that you think that needs to be here? Do we need to have an amazing popcorn bucket? Does it need to look like his cave with just where you put your hand in, but it looks like the ice cave on the outside?
I was thinking that actually. I was like, you can't do anything like ridiculous where Superman's mouth was like, you can't do that because Deadpool did that. You have to do something like, here is Superman's crystal palace cave.
Do you think we need a cute alien inside of captivity? It looks like a Pikachu, but it doesn't have the ears.
Oh, we got that. That's Crypto. We got the dog. That's all you need. His cute sidekick for the movie is Crypto, a white dog that has super laser vision.
Thank God. Thank God it's a white dog. Somebody is appeasing to Taylor's interests.
I mean, Crypto is a white lab. Like, that's what he is. He just looks like a white lab.
Listen, I'm happy he's there. I also, after the movie's been out 1 week, then we're allowed to have a Crypto trailer. But you can't do a Crypto trailer before we see the movie.
Yeah, if you start throwing out massive spoilers, like, I want marketing to be very much like what they did with Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, don't show. I mean, if you want to show X-23 at the end of the final trailer, that's one thing. But the fact that it's been out 2 weeks now, when we're finally getting teasers of Gambit and all them, that's how you should do trailers. Don't throw the payoff in the first trailer, because that's what Dwayne Johnson did with Black Adam, and that's why that movie. People went to that movie expecting to see Superman, and we saw him for 2 seconds at the end.
Mm. Do you think that we need to see a setup for the rest of the world at the end of this? That someone like Black Adam or Batman or someone like that we see them on screen, not a tease of a bat symbol. Batman walks into frame and goes, "I'd like to introduce myself to you."
No, I don't think they need to do that. I think they can do that later on.
Okay.
I think they got to do what they did with like the Iron Man movie, where in Iron Man, what was our show that the world was bigger was Nick Fury and the whole Shield reference. That was the only thing that we got. Iron Man 2 is where we got the other teases. But the first one, I mean, we know that Task Force X, Amanda Waller, Cadmus, all that stuff is being referenced in this first movie. That's enough to show that this world is big. You don't need to go nuts with it.
We don't need to see. Do you think we have Superman take down Harley Quinn?
Not at all.
Okay.
I think what we're going to see at most is a setup for another film, and that's going to be Supergirl. And that's all I see is the big thing, is that Supergirl's going to pop up, and she's going to and it's going to just set up her film. That's as far as I see any post-credit tease or any spoilers.
Do you think the last frame of Superman should be the first frame of the other movie? She goes, right, well, I'm taking off now. Bye. Zooms off. Camera goes to the right, and that's the beginning of the next movie?
I think so. I think that'd be actually do a Back to the Future style thing where you just set up the next movie with the last frame. End the movie with Superman finding his cousin's pod, opening the pod. Kara comes out and says, "I'm looking for my cousin Kal-El. He's a baby. Where is he?" And he's like, "That's me. You've been in this thing for a while." And then end it there. Cut to the next movie. That scene starts it, and then they go into. She's like, "How am I supposed to figure out who the hell I'm supposed to be when you're already Superman?" And then set up the movie where she's trying to outlive his shadow. So don't do a Back to the Future style ending. I love those where it's just to be continued, and just do something like that. That'd be fun. Not enough movies do that.
Well, that's how we'll end today's episode. To be continued. Marty, we got to get out of here. We got to get back to the future.
God, something's got to be done about your kids, Marty. What's wrong with them? Yeah. Take us home.
Till is such the best movie. Please, if you would like to help keep the lights on around here, please head over to the patreon.com/theculturednerd. Thank you for all of your tutelage. Thank you for all of your patronage. Please, if you have those cell phones handy, please don't forget to comment, and subscribe. Question of the week: what do you want to see in this new Superman movie? Hit us up on the socials. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what your thoughts are. I've been your co-host, Michael Santel. My host, of course, has been Taylor Murphy.
What's up?
And we'll see all you kids and cats next time.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time. And by the way, the next time will be very soon, is we're going to talk about Batman Cape Crusader. Michael wasn't a huge fan. I sort of liked it. We're going to talk about it as a whole. So let's see you next time.